Welcome to the Relationship Makeover Summit. I'm Kai Clifford, your spiritual guide, energy alchemist, and host today. And today we have the fabulous Marli Ansel. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, so this is such a topic that's close to my heart because I feel like it's so important for women to realize the truth about relationships. Would you like to share a bit about your relationship journey?
Oh my gosh, how much time do we have? So, currently I am very happily married. But I was one of those girls that did not ever think about marriage. I kind of thought I would never get married. It just wasn't something that was on my radar. Growing up, I came, I was essentially born into a divorced family. My parents got divorced within the first year that I was born. So I never had like a representation of marriage or relationship or anything like that. And I never thought about it. It just didn't occur to me what it should be. Now, whether to say that is what manifested my relationship journey down the road or not, I have no idea. But I went through my fair share of tumultuous, toxic, not okay relationships. And I spent about 10 years in the same cycle, dating a different guy, but he's the exact same guy.
Uh-huh.
And it was tough. It was a really hard time. There was a lot of, oh my God, oh wow. Speaking of, oh, my light just went nuts.
There's a powerful transmission about
Wow.
to be delivered.
Yeah, that was crazy. Okay, so when I was 16, I got into my first long-term relationship. I call them my first 5-year relationships because I had two that lasted 5 years that were pretty much the same relationship lessons over and over and over again. So I was 16 when I entered the first one, and it was abusive in the sense that it wasn't physically abusive, but very verbally, very mentally abusive, all of those things. And it didn't start that way, as like a lot of these relationships go. It didn't
Yeah.
start out like that, but it eventually led to that. And I was in, just such a position in life where I was young. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know that I could ask anybody for help. I don't even know that I wanted help out of it. And so I hit this point in that relationship what I call like my done point. I just hit this like it was just out of nowhere, like I'm done. I'm done. And I moved out because we were living together. I moved out. I moved to a whole new city and I essentially just started over. And by the
Mm.
grace of God, he just let me go. And I don't know what that was or why, but he let it go. With a few, contact points here and there. And that was when my personal development journey really started. So as you know, like I teach personal development from a spiritual perspective. And that was when I really started on that journey of finding myself. And I realized after being in that 5-year relationship, I had lost so much of who I was because I was just in pure
Mm.
survival for 5 years that I didn't even know what I liked, like down to like my style, how I wanted to dress, and clothes had been such a part of my existence as a child. Like wanted to be fashion, wanted to be a model, but then I got to 5'2" and stopped growing, so that didn't work out. But I didn't know who I was, and so there was this era of finding myself in that interim of 2 years where I just was deciding who I wanted to be and really understanding the power of building your own identity, that you can shift your mindset, that you can build your energy from the inside out. And it was so funny because now I have the language and the tools to explain that. I didn't know that that's what I was doing back then. And
Hmm.
then in that 2-year journey of being single, building myself, then I meet the next guy who slightly better, not abusive, but still had all of his own tumultuous stuff that he was dealing with. And I was solid enough in myself at this point to not go into that journey with him. It was almost like I was on the outside watching his journey, but still like connected to it. And so it was another 5 years. And all I can explain is that it's a karmic, like these are karmic relationships where I had lessons that I had to get and I had to move through in order to build me into who I am today. But again, I left that relationship by moving to another city. I have a pattern here.
Yeah.
I was like, I gotta go. I'm done. Moved to another city, ended up moving to Charlotte, which is where I live now. Um, Within the first, again, it was this journey of building myself into that next level again. And so then within the next couple of years, I met a guy, and it was a totally different relationship. Like at this point, it was like I had put in my boundary lines, my standards. I was like, I'm just not going to put up with this nonsense anymore. And this is so funny. This is the phrase that changed everything for me, because I was the type in those 2 5-year relationships, I was so understanding. You know what I mean? Like, oh,
Hmm.
he had bad parents. Like that's why he's like that. He didn't have a good upbringing. He's got emotional trauma. I was so understanding for all of the nonsense that they put me through. And I hit this point, and this was the phrase, and it's so funny, but I tell it all the time because it saved me. I said to myself, even a serial killer has his reasons. That doesn't
Hmm.
mean that I have to put up with it. It doesn't mean that I have to be a part of it. And it was just this line in the sand of like, I'm done. I'm not doing these toxic relationships anymore. I'm not getting in screaming matches with my partner. When I am in a relationship, it's going to be of respect. It's going to be fun. It's going to add to my life. And it was like the adding up of the journeys that I had been on and the interims of really finding who I was and deciding what I was going to put up with and what I was not willing to tolerate and all of those things. It led me to this space of like not giving a, I don't know if you cuss on here or not, but like
Yeah,
just
it's fine.
not giving a fuck. Like I'm done. Like I don't care. I'll be single the rest of my life. I don't care. Like I am going to be happy in my existence, and my relationship is not here to complete me. It's here to add to my life. And
Yes.
I got to this level of like self-respect, truly is what it was, that I was like, I just want to have fun and I want to be with somebody who's fun. And so this guy that I met, he was so much fun, and we had a great relationship. And I call it like my like evening out relationship, because I had been
Hmm.
in really awful ones, and then for the first time in my life I was in this relationship where I felt safe, I felt comfortable, it was fun, it was just this like fun, beautiful relationship. And that one lasted about 3 years, and when that one ended, it it really taught me so much, because we literally scheduled our breakup. That sounds so wild, but we were both kind of coming to this realization, like this is ending. We're going in totally different directions, and we knew that there was no way forward together. And so we scheduled dinner. He came over. He cooked dinner at my house. We talked about our relationship. We talked about life. And then he literally said to me, Marli, 3 years ago, I asked you to be my girlfriend. He's like, will you not be my girlfriend anymore? And I was like, and it was beautiful, and it was sad, like, because you have to have that time to like mourn, because you care for the person.
Yeah.
But it was such a it really taught me that when you're honest and you're in open communication with the person about what's actually going on inside of you, like
Yeah.
breakups can be like that. They don't have
Yeah.
to be because something awful happened. Like it literally can just be our time is done. It's
Yeah.
like it's just up. And so I spent a couple of weeks crying whenever I needed to cry. And this was when I was really starting to get into personal development in terms of like really applying it towards something, like towards a career, towards becoming someone, versus like just getting out of survival like I was before. And I had learned that you can feel emotions simultaneously. And this was like such a revelationary thing to me, like I can be sad and also excited at the same time. And I learned that right before this breakup. And I remember spending this 2 weeks, it was right around Thanksgiving, 2 weeks, just if I needed to cry, I just let myself cry all the way out. Like don't stifle it, don't suppress it, just cry all the way out. And then I would feel this excitement of like, oh my gosh, what's next? What's life gonna be? Am I gonna meet somebody else? Like, what am I gonna do with my life? Like I would feel all of these emotions all at the same time, and I just allowed it.
Mm.
And so within See, that was November of 2018. In April 2019, I had friends and chirping in my ear to get on Bumble. Okay.
Mm,
And I've always been like, mm-mm, I don't know, I'm not doing dating apps. Like the horror stories you hear, I'm like, I don't want to do it. But they're just like chirp, 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 chirp. And then for the first time, it felt fun. And I thought, well, I'm not doing anything else anyway. you know, at this point, I'd left my corporate job. I had gone full time into my business. All of my best friends had moved away for their work or whatever they were doing. And so I literally was just working, like just at home, working on my business, doing my thing, doing coaching calls, all the thing. I wasn't doing anything. So I thought, like, maybe it'll be fun. Right. So I download Bumble. I was on this app for 2 weeks and then I met my now husband. And that, I don't know how much you want me to keep going, but like that story of meeting him and our first date, words are hard to describe, like the feeling that came through with that. But I just, when people tell you, like, when you know, I
yep.
al I always thought that was bullshit. Like, I always
Yeah.
thought, like, okay, but like with a little apprehension, right? It was like, I mean, the moment I met him, it just, like, I remember looking at him and going, who are you? Because it was just something about him just struck everything in my body. And I just kept staring at him. It was like I couldn't quite take him in, you know? And
Yeah.
I had the most phenomenal first date. I was shaking the whole time. And it was so funny because I was like drinking my wine and I was like, be cool, Marley. Like, don't spoil yourself. And then it was amazing, like our conversations and the synchronicities. And we just had like all these magical things happen on just our first date. And then the next day, he texts me in the morning and he's like, hey, I'm around your apartment. Like, do you want to go to lunch? And I was working because I'm career obsessed. I never was focused on marriage. I always was focused on my career. I said, I don't really want to leave for lunch, but you can come over for coffee. So he comes over. And this is the second day I know this man. And I'm telling him, I don't know what happened, but you struck something in me. Like, and I'm telling him the deepness of what I'm feeling on our
Yep.
second date. And I showed him like my hand shaking. And then come to find out, he told me he was shaking the whole time as well. And it was just
Oh,
this, like double resonance. And we've been inseparable ever since. And that was 5 years ago.
I love that. And I feel like for our viewers, this is such a beautiful lesson about, even though obviously there's a truth that you can predict your future from what's happening sort of now and been happening, on the other end of the spectrum, you can't actually predict your future relationships through what's happened so much, because things can change and you'll learn and you'll grow. And I feel like a lot of people stay in a relationship sometimes because they see the potential in the guy, but I think that's only seeing what you would do in their situation, seeing your own potential. But it's really about realizing that things will change. So would you unpack a little bit about how you developed the self-respect? Because I know it's very easy not to respect yourself. So what sort of tips would you have for our viewers around that?
Sure, sure. And I just want to say in your what you said about being able to predict the future, I always say like this was not predictable. Based
Yep.
on my relationship past, this was not predictable. Like I didn't know a love like this existed. Like I didn't know it was possible. And I come back to that all the time. Whenever I'm worried about the future or I'm basing something on the past, I'm like, Marley, you got to remember, like your past, if you judged what your life is
Yep.
right now, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. But I think, and to what your point is here, I think the common denominator is always you. And the work that I did on myself elevated my frequency to be able to receive this. Like we
Yeah.
wouldn't have been ready for each other before this, like if I was still in the stage of being an energetic match for toxic and yelling at each other and all of that stuff, which he had similar past in his relationships, like where there was not good communication and there was a lot of tumultuousness, we wouldn't have been able to make it work.
Yeah.
And so like there's the years that I spent not thinking about a partner, just wanting to work on me. Like I just wanted to be good in me. You know, when I was a kid growing up, I didn't know it, but I was super empathic. Like I literally just discovered in the last 4 years how much I feel other people. And it has made so much of my life make sense
Yeah.
because I would like be so uncomfortable, like in school or around big crowds or whatever. And I always thought something was wrong with me. And then come to find out, I'm just picking up on everybody, like
Mm-hmm.
everybody's energy. And it was so uncomfortable. But because of that, I was never comfortable in my own skin, you know? And so I really wanted to just get good with me. And
Yeah.
that's what inspired the personal development journey. And then I just have this obsession for spiritual seeking and I just want to know more and I want to understand how it all works. And, you
Yep.
know, but right before, this is the significant part, right before I met Robert, I had just started kind of learning about masculine and feminine energy. And it was more in the sense of like, I wanted to make more money. Like, I
Yeah.
was like, okay, feminine is receiving. I've got to tune up the feminine energy. Like I was in that stage of learning. And, but the way that it really came about was the first night that I downloaded Bumble, like any normal human, I spent way too much time on it. And it was like 2 hours of swiping this way and that way and all this stuff. And I hadn't even had the first conversation, but I was feeling nauseous. Like, and I was like, oh, like I don't feel good. What is happening? And through my training and my understanding of everything that I had learned thus far, I knew like if you don't feel good inside, there's something there for you to look at. And so suddenly I
Mhm.
was not feeling good. I was like, ugh. And so I go to my journal because that I'm a writer, so that's how I process. And what I figured out, I was having conversations in my head with these made up guys.
Yeah.
I hadn't even had like an actual conversation yet, but I was making up conversations in my head, defending myself to them,
Yep.
defending who I am, defending what I do, like these like ego fights, like literally having these arguments when I hadn't even met a single human yet.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God. So the questions I started asking myself was, what feels unsafe about the masculine? What
Mhm.
feels unsafe about men? What feels unsafe about being feminine? Why am I not comfortable relaxing into the masculine? And I started doing that deep work around my own internal wounding of not feeling safe around men, which you can see deeply connects to the 10 years of being in unsafe relationships. And I just really like surfaced that energy out to be reworked and started to build my own definitions of what I was comfortable with and building my standards around the type of man I'm even willing to be around, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so after doing that journal work, that first night, you know, I felt so much better. And then I got so excited because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm tapping into my feminine. I'm gonna make so much money now. like just thinking about it in terms of energy and receiving. Wasn't even thinking about a man or finding a man or anything like that. But anyway, long story short, within the next couple of days, I met Robert. And our conversation was just immediately to the depths and he was so authentic. And then come to find out later, he told me like he had set that intention because he had gone through a divorce the year before. And he said, I'm just going to be myself. He's like, I'm not putting on anything for anyone. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the first things he said to me was that he's intuitive. And I was like, never in my life have I heard a man call himself intuitive at this
Yep.
point, you know, and I was like, what do you mean? And sure enough, very intuitive man. And the conversations just went so deep so quickly. And we met within the week, and it was just this that's it. Like, that's
Right.
it.
I love that. And there's three things that at the moment are popping out with what you said. One is like that level of detachment, because that's what I had as well, like loving being single, not really looking for a relationship. And they really do happen when you're just living your life as yourself. So I think for our viewers, it's remembering that detachment. And then the authenticity, like just allowing yourself to be exactly who you are. Like, why are we always trying to put our best foot forward and like hide who we are with the person that we could potentially spend our life with? Like, that doesn't even make sense.
Well, yeah, it's all protection mechanisms though,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
Detachment's easy. So I'll say this, like I didn't my core wounding isn't in relationships. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like when you have a core wound, so here's my theory. I think everyone has the area of life that their like main lessons are in.
yep.
My main lessons are not in my intimate relationships. I've learned a lot in there, but that's not where my main stuff is. And so I was always perfect. Like the irony that I was in so many long-term relationships, I was always perfectly happy being single. Like it didn't bother me at all. But for someone who has that as a core wound, that's so bothersome, you know, and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to detach when you've got that wound. And so
Yep.
it becomes, you know, the work, doing that work on yourself becomes really the main focus of your life. And it has to
Yeah.
be to even be able to start to comprehend what detachment would even look like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like
Exactly.
kind of willpower detachment is like, well, that doesn't work, you know?
Mm-mm. Yeah,
And
it
so
really does have to be an emotional process, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah. And I'll say this, like it's all with purpose. You know, I think we judge ourselves, we make ourselves so wrong for the challenges that we go through, but like we chose every challenge that we're facing. And so instead of saying there's something wrong with me, I'm not married yet, I'm not this yet, or whatever, it's like, okay, let me get curious about that. And let me say, why does that matter to me so much? You know, what am
Mm,
I trying to run away from that I think this is going to save me from or create something that I'm after? And looking at it from the perspective of I always say, look at it from a third party. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like pop out of your human existence and just look at it from that perspective and get curious. Like, okay, so if this, and this is happening, and that doesn't happen to everybody, but that's happening here, what does it have for me? You know, what is it trying to show me? What am I meant to learn in all of this? Like, what did I
Yeah.
sign up for this time around that I need to understand so that I can get to that happy place? And then, like you said, you know, the great irony is like once you're detached from it and you're good, but you're detached because you're good, you're like, I don't care. Could happen never. I'm good. No big deal. Then boom, right there it is.
Absolutely. I actually shared this reel, this little clip from Alice, the new Alice in Wonderland movie. And one of the villain guys, he's like, I've got this thing and I'm looking for, but it's no big deal. I don't care about it. Why are you making such a big deal about it? And really like, and I've like put a joke like this is what it looks like when some of you all detach, because it's like you pretend you detach, but then you're like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And it's
Yeah.
that's why it's such the emotional process of getting to know yourself, which is I think really a great power, because once you know your motivations and why you're doing it, then you have the real power to make the changes.
Right, right. Because any like attachment is the ego, you know,
Mm.
like and we could talk for days about it, but
Yes.
anytime you're attached to something working out in this exact way, it's always ego, and ego is always coming from fear and it's always coming from lack. I don't have, so I want. And if I don't get what I want, then it means this about me. And so it comes down to
Mm.
like, what is the meaning that you're making up about yourself that you're literally making up? You know,
Yep.
you're the one who's deciding it. No one's decided this about you. Like nobody cares. Nobody
Yep.
cares if you're married or you're not married. You know, like your mom might have some things to say, but in truth, like nobody cares, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Just
Not
making
like
that
not like you think they do. No way near it.
right. People are so caught up in themselves. They're not thinking about
Mhm.
us, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's like clients that come to me with relationship blocks. We have to. A big part of it is often what other people think. It's like, well, they can't sometimes even go out to dinner and eat by themselves or travel by themselves. Which traveling by myself is how I met my husband accidentally randomly. You
That's so
know,
okay.
because they're so worried what people will think, but no one's thinking it. It's just you. And so once you change that meaning on purpose, then everything can click.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a fan of like going all in on the opposite, you know. So I have a client who's afraid of offending people, you know, on social media because she's like audacious and she's bold. And I was like, make it a game.
Yeah.
See how audacious you can be. How many people can you offend? You
Yes.
know?
I love that.
she's a good person, and I think we forget that. Like we forget our core essence. Like we're not here to harm anybody. We're not here to do anything wrong. You don't, ultimately feel as though you will never have anything you ever want. Like you're coming from
Mhm.
a pure core essence. And so when you tap into that and then just go be you, it starts to heal that part of you that feels as though there's
Yeah.
something, you know.
I feel like we could just talk for ages, but for time's sake, would you love to tell everyone about the wonderful free gift you have for our viewers?
Sure. Yeah. So I actually just put this together. So this will be the first time I'm talking about it ever, actually. So I have a 30-day foundational process that I recommend to every single client that walks through my door. And it's essentially just a reset each morning, no matter what your schedule is like. So I have crafted it and created it to where you have the time to do it, no matter if you're a busy mom or you've got like this huge work schedule going on or whatever. And I explain the energetic science is kind of what I call it.
Hmm.
Like I explain the energetic science behind it and why it is so important. So I call it my 30 days to prosperity. And it's all about resetting that internal prosperity, getting yourself out of that survival mode and into the abundance frequency. Because when we're operating in survival, we literally can only create more lack, more
Yeah.
fear. And so we've got to reset the frequency that you're operating in. So it's a 30-day process, and with it you get it's a 40-minute video that explains everything. You get a calendar to check it off. You get a free meditation that's abundance blocks cleared that I have made. It's energy work that you can do every day. And there's one other thing I included on there, but I can't remember what it is now. But totally free, 30-day process. It'll change your entire life.
Yes, that's amazing. Thank you so much for being here today, Marli.
Absolutely. Thanks for having
Yay. And
me.
we managed to overcome the technology and the flashing lights from before we recorded and after we began. Great.
So
Okay.
fun.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us in the Relationship Makeover Summit. Make sure you grab Marli Ansel's free gift, and the link will be wherever you are watching this video. So have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.